Okay, so you should have your background ready. What we're going to do now is we're going to put some type of vessel or container on the table to hold fruit. So you don't want to paint like you're going to do a bowl, and it could be a bowl that has like a stem and a foot to it. You don't want to use black or white because you can't then put shadows and highlights on it later. So you're going to choose a color for it. So let's say, and actually I'm going to show a little trick here. So I want you guys to understand the difference between this wash of color where I did a tint of brown. I'm actually going to use brown to do my bowl. So I'm going to do the opening at the top of it, sort of drawing it with my paintbrush. You'll notice it's darker. This paint has to be opaque. The brown before had to be transparent because I needed to be able to paint stuff on top of it. So even though I'm using the same color, this is showing up really well because of how I'm using the paint. I'm using more paint and less water. Now, some of you might be stressing out, oh, there looks like there's a hole in the ball, but the thing is, that's going to have fruit in it later, so I'm not worried about that. That'll get filled up. So what I'm going to do now is create shades of that brown that get even darker because I'm actually going to put black into it. When I do that, I'm going to choose a side to put the shadows on. So I'm going to add black over here. Then, before the paint has time to dry all the way, that's going to be my dark side, so I'm cleaning out my brush, squeezing out the actual water. Too much water, you'll lose control of your paint. And I'm going to blend that black into the brown so it fades into it, just like those shadows we practiced in our last painting assignment. Then, of course, on the other side, I need to create tints of the brown by adding white into it. So the tints are lighter, the shades are darker. So I'll put the white on there. Now, leaving it like that, it just looks like a stripe. So I've got to clean out my brush, squeeze out the extra water, go back in and blend it. Now the bowl looks a little more 3D, so the hole in the top of it, that's really bothering me because this is starting to look realistic and that's not helping, that's hurting. So what I need to do now is I need to actually put fruit in it. So let's say I'm going to put apples in the bowl. So I'm going to get some red paint, and I need the paint to be dark enough to cover up that back edge of the bowl, the blue and the brown that's showing on the table and the wall there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of visualize, okay, well, if there's an apple here, it's sort of curved and piled up there, and then maybe there's one piled on top of that, and then there's one here, and then there's one here. That's just the top contour edges. Now, I could sit here and paint the whole thing red because it's all going to be red, but what I want to do is I want my brush strokes to sort of seem like they're describing round forms. So here, I'm going to use curved marks to build each individual apple that's stacked in the bowl. Now, these that are on the back here, they shouldn't be floating. So then I'm going to have to visualize, well, there's probably one here that those are resting on top of. So then I'm going to curve my marks to fill it in. So even though, like right now, it just looks like a pile of jello or something in the bowl, because I can't see my individual forms. I can't leave it like that. The bowl looks very 3D, so I want the apples to look 3D. So I'm going to clean out my brush. And I see through the video there is a glare here, so I'm cutting on this light to kind of get rid of that. So you guys are seeing it's all the same color red. So now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to create my shadows that would actually look like they're describing the roundness of the apples. So if I put one here, then there's one here, it's going to stop there because there's an apple that it would be piled on top of. Now these are looking pretty convincing, but not as convincing as the bowl. So the difference is the bowl has been blended, the apples have not. Making sure I'm getting rid of my extra water in my brush, and I'm going to pull the black into the red so it fades in there. So I'm blending it in. If you notice your apples getting covered with black, that's going to make them look like they're rotting, so nobody would want to eat them later. So I would clean out my brush. This looks like I might need to clean it out because that's starting to cover more of the red than I mean to. But you can see the difference between the apples that I have blended and the ones where I haven't. So fading it away makes it look a lot more convincing as a three-dimensional form. So those look pretty good. What's going to bring it to the next level is I'm going to start putting the highlights on there. So once the shadows are blended in, then I'm going to get white, and I have my shades of red. So now I need to do my tints of red. So if I have light on this side of the ball, then I would put it on the same side of the apple. It's coming from the same direction. Here I must have slipped a little bit, so I'm going to kind of make this apple seem a little bigger to hide that. And those look pretty good, but if I go back and I blend in the white, it'll look even more convincing as a round three-dimensional form. Always squeeze out the water from your brush. Too much water and the paint's going to go all over the place. You're taking the time to do this the right way, so you don't want to lose control of your paint. Now the nice thing is, now that you've done round pieces of fruit, you could do pears. We practiced drawing those a couple weeks ago. You could do other apples, oranges. You could do round pieces of fruit on the table, because now we know how to get that effect. So in the next video, you'll see me adding more.